Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? I'm speechless right now. I am speechless right now. Quinn Hughes, the superstar defenseman that everybody and their mother had connected to the New Jersey Devils via trade. Obviously, the connections there being his brother Jack and Luke, is traded to the Minnesota Wild out of nowhere. Minnesota out of nowhere. Unbelievable blockbuster trade happening in the NHL tonight. I'll tell you what, I feel like all of this got started with this tweet right here, and I'm going to share this right now. Um, let's post this up on the screen. Hopefully, there's nothing on my Twitter right there. Okay, Elliot Friedman this morning when he reports this Tristan Jarry to Pittsburgh news, or sorry, Tristan Jarry to Pittsburgh, Tristan Jarry to Edmonton Oilers news. He says this is shaping up to be a very big day, and we're all kind of sitting here. We're all thinking, what the heck's going on there? Is that just him talking about it from the perspective of this deal maybe like a Stamkos deal? I know there were other rumors floating around there about the Devils as well in the past couple days. Is this going to be the Stamkos news? No, the news ends up being Quinn Hughes being traded to the Minnesota Wild. Let's share this tab instead now. Quinn Hughes traded to the Minnesota Wild for Marco Rossi, for Zeev Buium, for Liam Ogren, and a first round pick. Welcome everybody in to Speaking of the Devils. I'm your host Ryan Nowazinski, joining you from my home studio right here in lovely downtown Ewing, New Jersey. Before we get into any of this, I have to thank our sponsors over there at New Spine. Thank you to our friends at New Spine for sponsoring us here on Speaking of the Devils with 7 locations. They are New Jersey's leading institute for minimally invasive spine surgery. Live your best life pain-free. Visit New Spine. That's nu-spine.com to find a location near you. You can find it up here. Look, nu-spine.com. Thank you to them for sponsoring our videos. Guys, I am stunned. I mean, I have no idea how Minnesota kind of came out of left field. I guess with that package, that makes a lot of sense. That is a haul of a return for Minnesota. Let's break it down like this. Marco Rossi, obviously, becoming an established player himself, a young center too. That seemed to be kind of the sticking point for the Canucks. It seemed like that was, Friedman reported it last night in his 32 Thoughts blog that it seemed like the Canucks wanted a center as part of the package, a promising young center too, to build around. Marco Rossi was the 9th overall pick just a few years ago. Zeev Buium was, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, and sorry if I'm butchering that, but when I my quick little Google search, it said that was Zeev Buium, and I know that he's one of the most promising young defensemen because I know the Devils probably should have drafted him when they got the chance. He went 12th overall to the Minnesota Wild a few years ago. Liam Ogren went 19th overall to the Wild a few years ago, and then they throw in another additional first-round pick. So that's 3 first-round picks that they're throwing out there via trade. 2 guys already. I don't know too much about this Liam Ogren kid. Maybe somebody in the chat can educate me because I think he's still playing in the AHL with the Wild. But I mean, that's a haul right there. That's a haul and a half there for Quinn Hughes. That's basically like fourth round picks. I don't even know if the Devils had enough to match that. I'll be honest with you. What do you think guys think is the Devils equivalent of that? Okay. Marco Rossi, I don't know that there really is one, especially being a young forward like that. Zeev Buium, the obvious comp, I think would be Nemitz, right? Who he was circling around in rumors. I'm almost confident the Vancouver Canucks had asked about him as well in rumors, or sorry, in trade talks. The Devils were definitely in trade talks there with the Canucks. It's just, Minnesota kind of came out of left field really and stunned everybody, stuns the hockey world at about 7:30 p.m. on a Friday night here, the Friday night news dump. Unbelievable trade here, guys. Let's see if there's anything else trickling out. If there's any other additional reporting, I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb during the stream. So if there's any additional reporting that you guys can share in the comments, I'm checking out Twitter as well as we just kind of try to unpack this, digest this news, and we'll get into the comment section in a second as well. I want to shout out this guy Puck Report here because I think I think he says it best. And we'll share the screen once more. He says right here, and this is probably the best point of all. Bill Guerin, GM of the Minnesota Wild, former New Jersey Devil player. He's got some serious balls, man. He's got some serious balls for pulling this trade off. He goes all in with the Kaprizov contract, obviously a huge, biggest AAV in NHL history right there. Um, and then he surrounds him with Quinn Hughes as well. I think that is spectacular. I think that is exactly the kind of all-in move that the Wild needed to make. As for the Devils, let's talk about this from the Devils side of things. I don't know that they could have matched that offer again, as I mentioned off the top. I'm kind of struggling, even kind of trying to piece together what a Devils equivalent of this trade would be. Because you can't, like, Marco Rossi, I think, is showing more promise than even Dawson Mercer has, and he's a center. He's a pure center, right? So I feel like that's kind of a big sticking point. That's what Vancouver wanted to trade. Z Bouillon, I know, has a lot of is highly lauded across the league as well. Perhaps even more so than Shimon Nemeth, because I feel like Nemeth is coming into the league and he's having a great year. There's little doubt about that, but I think that there's a lot of people that kind of wonder like how sustainable that is, how and how much he can keep that consistently going forward. Z Bouillon, looking at it right now, 14 points in 31 games here. I think Nemeth has more. I think I would be surprised if Nemeth didn't have more here. 18 points in 31 games for Nemeth. But again, a promising young defenseman in Minnesota pulls off the blockbuster. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. I guess for the Devils' sake right now, they have to hope one of two things. Let's talk about this. What does this mean for the Devils? That's what you guys are here for. What this means for the Devils is one of two things. One, you better go appease your fan base with a different kind of splashy trade, because you missing out on Fitzgerald missing out on Quinn Hughes is I want to sit here and say it's not a good look because of just the brotherly aspect of it, and that's fine. But I understand that Quinn didn't necessarily have control over the situation there. Like he didn't have control over which team. If he had any sort of no move clause, he would have been able to kind of control his destiny there. I don't think that was the case, and Minnesota kind of came in with this monstrous offer that again, I don't know that the Devils could have even offered, but I do understand the fan frustration of not being able to pull this guy off, who was in many ways viewed as a guy that you thought. I mean, I thought this Sunday's game, all the juice is out of this Sunday's game now. I thought there was going to be we want Quinn chance. I thought there was going to be all of that. That is sucked out. That's wind is out of their sails now. And Fitzgerald misses out. What the Devils have to hope for is that, could this turn into a Rantanen situation where, he gets traded there and then he requests it and then there's another trade that happens. I don't know if that'll end up happening because Quinn still has another year after this. Maybe Minnesota's banking on him falling in love with it there, and signing an extension there. You never know what will happen. Or Fitzgerald just has to ride this out and make the right trades. You saved a lot of assets now. You can kind of spread those out across the league. You can, trade a Nemeth for a top six wing now if you want, because you're not going to get it for Quinn Hughes. That is for sure after he gets traded to the Minnesota Wild. I'm still speechless, guys. Sorry if I'm rambling a little bit here. I don't even know how to formulate my thoughts here. I guess you just have to wait for Quinn either in free agency or, to sum it up, free agency, or you wait for a Mikko Rantanen type of situation. But that's rare. That's a rare breed of a situation to happen. So I don't know that that'll necessarily happen to the Devils. Let's just go into the comments, guys, because I'm struggling formulating my thoughts. That's my 2 cents off this. This is a call to action. The two trades today, I feel like, were calls to action for Fitzgerald, who I would say right now, is definitely trying to make moves out there. There's little doubt about that he's been working the phones and everything like that. But until pen is actually signed to paper, until handshakes are had, until a new guy is on this roster, you got to sit here and question whether he's the guy that can steer the ship and lead this team into a deep, promising playoff run. I get the injuries right now, and that's fine. And those are terrible right now, especially with Arsenij Gritsuk even going down today. But you would expect another splashy deal for Fitzgerald to come at least sometime soon, because the floodgates are open, folks. The floodgates are open. We saw the Tristan Jarry trade, the Stuart Skinner trade this morning. Elliot Friedman, again, I mentioned off the top, he said that this could be a busy day. Well, it got even busier tonight. And we were going to have to keep these tweet notifications on just to see what the heck ends up happening because there is a lot going on across the league. Let's go into the comment section. We start with our friend Lou from Peru, who says, Ryan, what is happening? I don't know, Lou. That's myself. Like, I feel like I'm rambling right now because even I don't know what's happening. That came out of complete nowhere. I talking to people across, the league this week, across the building this week for the Devils, it felt like, they thought that they had a pretty good offer in place for Hughes. You know, I know that they were always the ones that would get brought up even in these reports, like from Friedman this week. The Devils were the ones that were, always talked about first for obvious reasons because of the brother connection for sure, but also because they thought that they had a good number of young prospects. Well, I don't know if they could have matched this trade, guys. This was a haul. This was a haul. I know that, we're wanting to sit here. I understand the sentiment of the fan base right now where the Devils lose 6 out of their last 7 games. You want to say fire the GM. You want to say, off with his head. I don't know if I blame him for this one. I think I blame him only for the fact that you swung and missed on Quinn Hughes, and at some point you got to push all these chips in. But I think even pushing all those chips in, I don't know that it would have necessarily. I don't know that it necessarily would have won you this contest because obviously there were offers on the table there in Vancouver from the Devils. They made calls about this. I think Kipper had mentioned, or Justin Bourne, whoever, Kipper and Bourne, one of the Kippers and one of the Bournes mentioned that they had talks even going back to this summer. And I would imagine that the Devils have just checked in on this for quite some time now. But they aren't able to get it. This was a haul and a half for Minnesota. Let's keep going. Tyler Seba mentions the Fitzgerald quote from last year where he said we came in second. Yeah, look, at that point, I feel like you came in second, but there's honestly a gap between there too. Obviously they accepted the trade, so it's their best offer. That probably was far and away their best offer, I would imagine. I mean, look, you see the verbiage that Elliot Friedman uses in his 32 Thoughts blog last night. The verbiage he uses was, Vancouver is asking for a haul. They're asking for a complete haul. They're almost asking for an overpay here. I'm not saying this is an overpay because this is exactly the kind of move when you're kind of a team that's on the fringe and you want to break through and you think that you're a Quinn Hughes away from contention. But Minnesota sure did give up a lot. But they are 17-9-5 this year. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row, and they're just going to get even better now that Quinn Hughes is in the mix. Sharon Goldvich says, thank God he went to an S-hole like Minnesota, somewhere he hopefully won't extend. Is this now the second time that the Minnesota Wild have broken the hearts of Devils fans? I just have to ask that. That was one of the first things I thought of with Zach Parise connection as well. I would agree with you there too. I mean, unless they have serious success, unless they go on like a cup run or something like that, which I just think there are still probably better teams out there. Although I do like the way that Minnesota's built now. I'd have to look at their roster, what it looks like with Quinn Hughes. Again, we're just still digesting this guy. This just happened. But it's too early to tell whether he would want to re-sign in Minnesota, but as of right now, I think the chances are good. I mean, look, this is one of those moves where you try to trade for him and you try to convince him to stay. It reminds me of when I'll use it not to cross sports, but I'll use an NBA example. It's like when the Toronto Raptors trade for Kawhi Leonard and all right, we want to convince you to stay and re-sign here. He wins a championship there, but even he doesn't re-sign there. Even he goes back home to Los Angeles. Maybe it'll be kind of the same there, where even if Minnesota goes on a deep playoff run, maybe he'll still sign in New Jersey because you got the two brotherly connections there. It's funny too. I had an interview with Luke Hughes today because I think that he's kind of the interesting character in all this, where he's kind of stuck in the middle. Like here, you have one brother Jack who's dominating national headlines because of the cut hand and everything like that. Then you have Quinn who's just engulfed in these trade rumors and rumors swirling around, everything like that, and it's going berserk there in Vancouver. And here you have Luke. Here you have quiet Luke, who's just sitting here trying to manage his role, managing a tough situation now where he's getting a heightened reps or heightened minutes because of all the injuries in the lineup right now and having to shoulder that load. But now that interview is worthless. I did ask him and about kind of all the noise. I was like, Everybody in the world is talking about your two brothers right now. And he just looked at me and he gave the classic, I don't know, man. I don't go on social media. So there wasn't too much meat to it, I would say. But yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. We'll see what ends up happening. Cruz VD3 says, I'm not saying that again. I'll say it again for the stream. Fami Tits came in second. Listen, listen, listen. You can say that he came in second, but I also think that, we don't, again, we don't know all the offers that were in there. There were reports all week about Washington being in the mix. There were reports about even the Rangers being in the mix, although I don't know how much I buy that. The Penguins being in the mix at some point. All of these teams, and the Devils obviously being in the mix as well, all of these teams had good offers on the table. I have no doubt that the Devils probably had the second best offer out there. Maybe the Red Wings too. I know a lot of people talk about the Red Wings, being able to offer quite a haul as well. Maybe the Devils came in third, maybe they came in second, but I think to this trade, the blockbuster nature of this, the haul that Vancouver got back, I don't know. They probably came in second, but again, there's a sizey gap there. I'm going to try to maybe dig in and see exactly what the offer was there. I haven't even checked my phone. It's probably blown up right now. If you guys just bear with me for 1 second. If the stream cuts out, it's not my fault. I'm just checking my phone. It's on Do Not Disturb right now. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just got a text from. Oh, sorry everybody if the stream cut out for a second. I just got a text from Bruce Boudreau, who said great deal for Minnesota. Because I texted him right after and I said, the Wild. I said the Wild. Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. Yeah. And I can confirm after looking at my text that the Devils did have an offer in place. I don't know the exact offer for Quinn Hughes, but yes, you guys can imagine I would imagine a very sizable gap between a lot of teams and the Wild. Again, a wild trade tonight. I'll probably headline the episode that. Let's go. Keep going on. Arthur says, we are live. Thank you, Arthur. I don't even know if I said, are we live at the top? I really don't. Super Star Wars nerd. I agree, man. Me too. Let me go ahead and just retweet the stream so that we get more people in here because we love seeing the comment section so active. Sorry, guys. Just a little housekeeping right now. But Super Star Wars nerd says, well, now Quinn is either coming as a free agent in 2027 or not. We'll see. Yeah, look. This this just makes the conversation so much more interesting now. So much more interesting now. What ends up happening? Does he end up coming in free agency? Does Minnesota, do they pull off the unthinkable and convince him to stay? I don't know that's doesn't sound too likely, right? Like barring, because two of your brothers are here. Let's see how Luke can kind of grow in that time frame. Does it end up being a genuine conversation? Because I think right now people get ahead of themselves when they say, oh, like what's going to happen with Luke? Like if Quinn had came here, or, like he would get bumped down a spot on the power play. Well, I feel like that conversation kind of is misinformed because he's not really on the power play one. He is on the power play one. There's no doubt about that. But Sheldon Keefe rotates it so many times, and quite honestly, like Quinn's just the better player right now. Like you throw him on power play one, Luke's development be damned. We'll see how Luke develops here in the next couple of years. But I'll say this: like I think there's a very good shot that the Devils can will probably be the ones that sign him in free agency if he gets to that point. Let me ask you guys this. Here's the question of the day. Did the Devils dodge a bullet? And I'm not saying that one way or another. I think the answer is probably no, because I think Quinn Hughes is that dynamic of a player. No matter return be damned. I feel like he's one of those players that kind of can lift you over the top, so to speak. But they get to keep these assets now. They get to use these assets in other deals. Again, just throwing it out there, devil's advocate. We'll see what ends up happening, but in a couple of years in free agency. But as of right now, Shimon Nemitz is still a New Jersey Devil. We'll see what ends up happening in the future. But my goodness. Jin4576 says, oh man, the fan base is going to take that news well. I haven't even been able to check. I'm so very curious to deep dive Reddit and Twitter right now and everything like that. Some of the comments I've seen from you guys so far is that, the return was just so the return was so much that maybe you dodged a bullet by not selling the entire farm for that. But also on the other hand, I don't think many Devils fans care about the farm, so to speak, right now because they want to push all the chips in. And I will say this: I mean, we mentioned this at last night's stream. The Devils are 9-13 since that 8-game winning streak. They are, they're still in the mix in the Metropolitan, but I think they'll be in the mix in the Metropolitan all year because of how tight that race is right now. But there's a serious question as to whether you want to trade all those chips away, as to whether you want to. I'm a push the chips in guy. I was a push the chips in guy around the 8-game winning streak, I would say. But right now, you have to have a serious thought about, how dire things would have gotten if, like, let's say, okay, so the Quinn Hughes trade happened today. How would the Devils have done with a lineup? Like, Quinn Hughes would have been in the mix for sure. That's great. But how would that lineup have looked if it was you lose Dawson Mercer, you lose Shimon Nemitz, presumably, you lose maybe somebody else, you lose Dougie Hamilton, maybe, you lose, first round pick. Obviously, that's not something that affects the team immediately. What does that look like for when you're already dealing with all these other injuries? The Devil, sure, the Quinn deal would have looked great when Jack came back and when Pesci came back, but let's face it, the team probably would have lost like the next 20 games or so that these two guys are going to miss. I don't know. So they probably would have been out of the race at that point. Let's move on. At Lou says there's no way Fitz couldn't have matched that. I don't know. Guys. Lou, again, it was a steep trade. I mean, I think that, again, talking to some people around the league, I feel like the guys that Minnesota gave up, I just feel like they're pretty highly regarded across the league. I don't know, though. Let's see. Chico Resch. I think you're an imposter, sir. Chico Resch says, at what point do the Devils start the rebuild again? I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to try to look once the guys get back from injuries and everything like that. I think things will end up being a little bit better. They do need to make a trade, though. I will say that, Chico. The Devils do need to make a trade sometime here soon. This is the call to action. I mean, look, like if just the pure nosedive in the standings wasn't a call to action before for Tom Fitzgerald, surely these two blockbuster trades that just happened across the league tonight, and this morning, would be a call to action. I mean, are we going to get the Stamkos deal? Not Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos. I've heard Braden Shen's name out there as well. Are we going to get that in the next couple of days? I would imagine that this puts the pressure not only on Fitzgerald but a lot of these other GMs, where it's like, okay, the market is set. Let's go. Let's make this happen. I will say this, though. You have your assets. Now you can kind of spread them out now that you know you're not getting Quinn. Do not overpay. Do not overpay for Steven Stamkos. Do not overpay for even Ryan O'Reilly, as good of a fit as I think he would be in the lineup. Do not overpay. That would be bad. Because you can spread these things out now. You can spread these suckers out. So let's see. Jay Snow says Fitz is being the most active right SMH. Again, I mean, look, from what I understand, he's been working the phones, but I do agree with the fan sentiment that, until handshakes are had, until deals are done, all that's just kind of talk right now. Jay Snow it points out an interesting point. We passed on Buyam and Rossi. Where was Rossi drafted? I kind of forget that draft. Was that what draft was that? Oh, that was the Holtz draft. Sorry. Yeah, that's very interesting that they did pass on both of those guys. So you could add Quinn. You also could add all those other promising guys in your core. Stanley says Fitzgerald came in second. It takes two to tango. LOL. No surprise though. NJ had nothing to offer because Fitzgerald screwed this roster sideways. Look, if Fitzgerald, that's the one thing I will say. If Fitzgerald did draft better, then the Devils would have had a better package, right? Like if he hit on the Stillman pick, if he hit on a lot of these other picks, then that would have been a better package. I mean, the one guy that I didn't even bring up in this is Salayev too. Like, do you throw Salayev in there? Do you throw Gritsuk in there? evidently it wasn't enough. Evidently, Vancouver thought that the other package that Minnesota sent them was better, and I would probably agree with them there. But let's move on. Sean Harrington said, now time for Kadri or Ryan O'Reilly. Completely agreed, Sean. Completely agreed. Go try to get those two guys. Get them, for cheaper than you would have. You can keep a lot of these assets now. Can you keep Shimon Nemeth now? That's a serious question we have to have. I'm still leaning towards, I think Shimon Nemeth will probably be in a deal. And here's why. Like, the stipulation there is that he's not, or sorry, it's like he doesn't have arb rights. So a team can just offer sheet him. A team can offer sheet him, and I think that a team would probably be tempted to do that with how promising he's looked this year. So let's see what ends up happening. I think that is I'm not going to say it's a foregone conclusion that Nemeth is put in a deal, but I think he'll be dangled in some of these deals. I think he'll be dangled, and I'll tell you what though, if you're dangling Nemeth, you better go get a star. You better go get a damn star. That's all I got to say about that. Easy says, as much as I wanted Hughes when we heard Van was looking for a top center and more in return, we just couldn't top an offer. Our best offer is just picks and D. Yeah, and that's a good point, Easy. Friedman mentioned this too, and this is what I had heard a little bit as well, just like kind of poking around on the situation a little bit. Vancouver, if it wasn't a top center, a top young center, which the Devils, like, quite frankly, unless you're trading Nico, they don't have, right? Unless it's a top young center, the trade was going to be needed to, you were going to need to overcompensate like crazy there. I just don't know that the Devils have those guys where you can, get you overcompensate for not having that top line center. Dawson Mercer's fine, but he's not a center. Are you going to trade him Cody Glass? No. They're going to say, no, we don't want that. We want Marco Rossi. And they got Marco Rossi, plus others, plus all these other three promising young guys, plus the pick. So that's very interesting. Chico Rush says, honestly, the Devils should be sellers. This team is not who we thought they were. Look, we'll see. We'll see what their record ends up being at the deadline, if they do end up being sellers or not. It's sad that even is the conversation right now, and that's just the unfortunate reality of the injuries they've dealt with this year, of some of the holes that are still in the roster. It's a testament to how terrible Markstrom has played this year, and how out of sync the goalies look this year. In general, the defense right now is crumbling. The defensive structure doesn't look good. Fitzgerald needs to make a trade to fix things soon, and he needs to get some of these guys back healthy as well. Jay Snow, it's time to retool this team. I knew we didn't have what they wanted. I knew we didn't have way they wanted. I'm gonna guess you mean what they wanted. Look, yeah, retool or shake up the core. Jack Hughes is an excellent player. Jack Hughes is a player that should, put you kind of over the top for sure. There's no doubt about that. There's a reason that the Devils kind of collapse whenever Jack Hughes is out of the lineup. He's just that, transcendent of a player. He's a Hart Trophy candidate for God's sake. But the team shouldn't crumble this bad when Jack Hughes is out of the lineup. I know there's other injuries as well. Believe you me, I know. This team should not crumble whenever Jack Hughes and Brett Pesce get out of the lineup this badly. It just shouldn't be the case. Do you have to take a serious look at, these guys in your core, and do you make a major shakeup there? I'm not advocating for it. I'm not advocating for a trade of Jesper Bratt. Not at all. I'm not advocating for a trade of Nico Hischier. Not at all. But you have to question it a little bit. You have to question how much these guys, not to say that Nico's crumbled or anything in the absence of Jack. Jesper certainly hasn't had the goal scoring touch that you would have wanted. It took him like 16 games to get a goal. He scored a goal last game. But, does the team try to evaluate this core and see what their ceiling is? And I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know if that a major, like, star for star, 1-for-1 trade. I don't know what that is. Or I don't even know if they do it, but I feel like that's a conversation that needs to be had, because right now you shouldn't crumble this much whenever Jack goes down. Because at one point it was like just Jack going down and like just a couple supplementary pieces here and there going down. Obviously Pesce is huge too on the blue line, but you should be able to I feel like even with Jack, 8-game winning streak, in play for sure, they were gutting out these wins sometimes. So you knew these results were going to go the other way. They were still gutting out these wins. So you just wish the team would be better even when, even with the star player going down. Just my rant over. Zach Chin says, yeah, no, Fitz needs to go. How he fumbles this is just beyond me. This team is going to look dead tomorrow, knowing there's no one coming to help for the foreseeable future, too. The morale piece of this is interesting. I'm very curious to see, and I'll try to poke around tomorrow just to get some players' reactions to this, get the coaches' reaction to this as well. Look, this has to be kind of a killer for a team, like a little bit, at least a little bit, like at least for the time being. You already have the Gritsuk angle. You already have Timo, who we hope he's doing well. We're thoughts and prayers out to the Meyer family. But it is unfortunate, like the hockey side of thing. It's unfortunate that he's out right now. He was such a big boost in that lineup. Other guys, like, again, I mentioned Gritsuk. I mentioned Jack staying out. I mentioned all these other guys. I mean, there were 3 guys not at practice today. Cody Glass, Stefan Nason, and Arseny Gritsuk. All of that crescendoing into Quinn Hughes being traded to the Minnesota Wild of all teams. It's got to be a little bit of a buzzkill for this team that probably thought he was on the way at some point. Michael McSherry, having an unserious GM has serious consequences. Look, again, I can say that I know he's working the phones, but I will say, I broken record here, but until action is made, then you got to expect this reaction from fans. You got to expect it. Fitzgerald right now, I would say that his seat should be warming up, and that's just in the respects of, that's more putting the pressure on him to make a deal rather than, he should be fired because the team is injured. I feel like, the one defensive Fitz right now is that I don't think any team could prepare for the amount of injuries that this team has dealt with this year. It's just been crazy. It looks cursed at times. But you can't just not make a move here, especially now that the floodgates are open. The floodgates are open. This is your call to action, Tom Fitzgerald. Can you make this? Can you pull off some sort of deal? I wonder how ownership is going to react to this. We probably won't know. Devils ownership doesn't speak that much. I'm very curious to see, because that I would imagine, having 3 brothers in on one team as soon as possible for a team that, in the Devils, that could be a contender ASAP if you got a Quinn Hughes. I wonder how they react to not getting that piece. Just my wonder there. Thomas Grigsby says Minnesota pulled a Lou, the quiet one, got the asset. Great way to put it there, Thomas. Great way to put it there. Came out of nowhere. Bill Guerin did. Excellent move for them, I think. Look, you lose a lot in that deal. I think good deal on Vancouver's end too. I feel like they squeezed all of that. They squeezed the maximum out of that. That's crazy, guys. When did the Devils play the Wild? I think it's soon. Oh, January 12th. Did they play them any other times? When did they play them at home? Did they already play them at home? Am I missing something? Where did the Devils play the freaking Wild? January 12th, and yeah, this is great. This is great on-air action right now. Just talking about when the Devils play the Wild. It is, though. They already did play them in October. Duh, they beat them 4-1. That game on January 12th, though, at Minnesota, I might have to call up the bosses, guys. I got to go to that sucker. Arthur here says, if you were to bet on who the Devils trade for, who is your pick? Ryan O'Reilly. He's been out there. Devils had. I talked to somebody. How should I frame this? I talked to somebody semi-close to O'Reilly the other day, and they said they would be, they'd be shocked if the Devils hadn't reached out to them, and then lo and behold, that the reports came out where the Devils had reached out to Ryan O'Reilly. So I think that's a good fit. I think he's a guy that if he can play third and he can play 3C, he can play 2C, he can bump the center depth down a little bit. You can have an ideal situation where Cody Glass is sitting there and playing 4C, which I think would probably suit him a little bit better. And I think he just adds a little bit of spark to your lineup. It's one of those Nashville guys, though, to answer your question honestly. It's either him or it's Stamkos. I would prefer Ryan O'Reilly. I don't care if Stamkos scores 8 goals in a game tomorrow night, whatever they're playing next. I know he scored 4 last night. I'm more in the Ryan O'Reilly camp, I'll tell you that much. Jay Snow, that's not a great return for Quinn's level. Look, like, in in respects to getting him for just like a potentially year and a half. I don't know, man. I think across the league, again, I texted a bunch of people when this happened, and just league wide, kind of pulsing this and gauging the reaction. Everybody's talking about how this was a like they like what Vancouver got back in the trade. Experts across the league, one executive, one former coach, one former two former coaches, I should say. A lot of people posting the league. They liked the return that Vancouver got in the deal. Let's move on. Gosh, I'm not going to read that one. Ghost Dog says Fitz has to be gone sooner rather than later, right? I hope an ownership possibly trust him to land in 2 years' time now. It's a good question. Yeah, that's the question that I would ask. What is ownership's reaction going to be to this? Do they look at this with frustration that you didn't get the guy? Do they look at it as, I don't know, that the Devils could have had that equivalent package? And that's the, look, that's what I reference here on Jon Snow's comment, or Jay Snow's comment, is that, while it might not be the premier return package that you could have gotten for Quinn, I do think that the Devils couldn't have matched that with the assets they have. And sure, all of that's on Fitz as well. But I mean, I think it's a pretty steep package. I'll tell you what, that's from my end. But to answer your question, Ghost Dog, you wonder how ownership views it. I think Fitz, if I were the owner, I would put Fitz on the hot seat right now just to, put the pressure on him to make a move and to shore up this lineup and to round out this lineup and, make this roster more impressive from top to bottom. Let them be able to sustain this, a lot of these injuries more frequently. But things might get ugly this trip. Look, I don't think that this would necessarily sway ownership one way or another. But if fans start chanting "Fire Fitzy," which you see it all over Twitter, that fans are kind of planning on that if there's an ugly start tomorrow at 12:30 with the play the Anaheim Ducks, then I don't see how you can ignore that kind of noise. I don't see how you can do it. Stanley says, first order of business is to clean out the front office before they do even more damage. Watch this idiot overpay for Stamkos. Now, I wouldn't overpay for Stamkos. If you can get Stamkos retained and at a pretty good, return, great. Get Stamkos. See if Stamkos at $4 million a year can spark your lineup at all. And oh, by the way, you'd have to throw in like Dougie in that deal so that they would take even more salary because his salary is just crazy right now, and he's still got 2 more years. But yeah, I wonder what the panic move, if there is a panic move after this, is going to be. Zach Chin, am I the only one just so unimpressed by what Minnesota gave them? Nemitz and Mercer alone outvalue those 3 guys in the pick. I don't know, man. Again, I think across the league, I think there's still a lot of people that view Nemitz, rightly or not, as somebody that, yeah, he's had a decent stretches this year. He's had an awesome stretch over the past several weeks. But we're still kind of in wait and see mode with Nemitz. I really feel like that's kind of the question around him right now. And Mercer's an Iron Man. Mercer can play, but Mercer had a bad last 2 seasons. He's having a way better one this year. Mercer had a bad last 2 seasons, I'll tell you that much. Mikey Mike says, so now what? LMAO. Now what is you pivot to the other trade targets on the market? You know what? The now what is, Mikey? I was just thinking this. Because we talk about Bill Guerin and how he kind of pulled a Lou move out of here. My challenge for Fitzgerald here, go get somebody that none of us are talking about, right? Go get somebody that none of us are talking about. I don't know who that is. It would be somebody that we're not talking about. Go pull a top 6 wing out of your rear end that none of us are talking about. And now, by the way, you can trade some premium assets for them because you got them, because you didn't give them up in a Quinn deal, because you didn't get them. The now what in the immediate future, I'll say this, is probably they pivot towards a Ryan O'Reilly or Steven Stamkos, one of those Nashville guys, maybe Nazem Kadri. We'll see what ends up happening, but I would circle those 3 names. I'd even throw Braden Shen in there as well, because that's a name that I've heard personally. We'll see. Jay Snow says we drafted Holtz and could have had Rossi. Yeah, but then we wouldn't have gotten the fun Lindy Holtz battles, right? That was fun, I thought. I'm joking. Jin says at least Quinn isn't playing for a Metro team, stays out west. Yeah, That is a silver lining, I suppose. Because I wondered too, like if Philly ended up getting him, which I think was kind of a long shot, would Philly have been able to convince him to stay there in like a, you know, in like a, okay, I want to be near my brothers, but I don't want to be on the same team as my brothers. I don't know. Like I can't tell you the brother dynamic. I feel like the dynamic would be the brothers would want to play with each other. They've all said that publicly. So I don't really know to answer your question, but yeah, in terms of competition and in terms of would Philly have been able to convince him to resign? There's two good thoughts there, I think. Shaba says Tom Fitzgerald is an absolute loser. He's got to make a move. I'll tell you that much. He's got to make a move, and he's got to do it soon. LG Devils fan trading Nico or Brian away with the Rossi comparisons. I think that would have been a mistake if you traded away Nico or Brat. Nico's is. I know people sometimes get on Nico, and I feel like that the microscope will be on him most of the time because he's got the C on his sweater. But he's a great player. He's a great two-way player. He's well respected across the league. Players hate to play against him. Brat is one of the guys that has just unbelievable chemistry with Jack. I don't think you trade on for many of those guys. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, what the hell are you doing? Like and subscribe. We do this after every game, and it's so much fun. So after tomorrow's game, I'm challenging you 97 people that are here right now. You guys better be in the post-game live stream tomorrow or after Sunday against the Canucks. The Quinn Hughes Canucks. That's so annoying. I was so excited. Sunday was going to be so much fun. But now, alas, it's not going to be. But please, guys, make sure to, we're going to do a little thing here. Oh, wait, it's hidden by the comment. Hold on. I did like a like and subscribe. Please do this. Do what this thing says. Please like and subscribe. Oh, we got a super chat. Oh, no, we don't. I started the comment. Maybe somebody give us a super chat, please. 1 second. I got to get this media asset back up. Okay. Anyways, moving on to the comments. Of course, I lost it right now. What the hell? I just lost this comment. Sorry. Sharon Golvich says he couldn't beat that offer unless he moved both Nico and Nemitz. This was simply an unbeatable trade. Yeah, and I know our friend Zach Chin, who's obviously very active in the comments, and we appreciate him. And I feel like a lot of Devils fans will probably be like, how could we not beat that trade? I'm telling you, based on the text messages that I've been seeing popping up on my screen here and there, this was a haul, guys. I'm telling you right now, this was a haul. A lot of these guys, if they're not stars now, I think a lot of these guys will end up being stars at some point. We'll see what ends up happening. But I think that was, in terms of what the Devils have, especially with the center aspect of things, like, I just don't think you were beating it. Anthony said, Minnesota showed up out of the blue and gave an incredible offer. Dude, you know what this had shades of? This had shades of whenever you're looking at your tweet notifications 3 off seasons ago, and the late great Johnny Gaudreau out of nowhere signs with Columbus. All these teams were linked to the Blue Jackets, linked to Gaudreau. The Bruins were, the Devils were, all these other teams were, and then out of nowhere he signs with the Blue Jackets. It had very similar shades of that. Had similar shades of the Kachuk trade as well, where it's just like, whoa, like out of nowhere, and then you see the return. It's like, whoa, out of nowhere. I think this could be a team elevating move for the what's it called, for the Wild trade for the Minnesota Wild. Shaba says Minnesota has a real GM. Yeah, Bill Guerin. I mean, hats off to him. That was a hell of a ballsy move. I love it. Chris says, Ryan, have you had a chance to ask for access to Fitzy? He needs to be held accountable for this team. Look, here's the deal with that. Again, like I put in the request. I'm not going to hide behind that. A lot of us have put in requests for Tom Fitzgerald to speak with him. As of right now, I would just say, I know I mentioned last night that we'll probably hear from him at the trade deadline. We'll hear from Fitz whenever he makes a move. That's from what I understand, from what I talked to somebody today, we will hear from Fitz whenever the Devils make a move. So next time the Devils make a move, hopefully it's soon, we will hear from Tom Fitzgerald. And there's a lot of questions that he needs to answer for. Nico for Frank is so mad. I don't blame you. Look, what do you guys think? Maybe I should put a poll. Are you guys let me see. What should the poll be? Are you bummed about not getting Quinn Hughes? I just started a poll, so you guys should answer in that. Stanley says Fitzgerald is probably busy signing Lamico to an extension with a no move clause, of course. The interesting aspect of Elliot Friedman's reporting over the past couple of days has been exactly that. How teams are the Devils are working the phones. They're potentially getting teams to bite on some of their players, but the no move clause is getting in the way. The no move clauses that Fitzgerald puts out. And I'll say this too. I have to look across the league to see if the Devils give it out more. I'm actually probably going to look to do this for a story. Who gives out the most no move clauses or no trade clauses on average? Is it the Devils? Is it Fitzgerald? Does he give them out more than other GMs do? I actually don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I feel like that's like the injury thing where it's like, oh, the Devils think that they're the most injury cursed team in the league. Maybe they have an argument for that, but yeah, there are two teams ahead of you in man games lost to injury still. So are there teams ahead of the we all get so devil centric sometimes because that's the team that you follow, and I get that. I totally get that, and I get that some of the no move clauses that have been thrown out there have been embarrassing. You don't need to throw a no move clause in the Palat deal. You don't need to throw a no move 20 team no move clause in the Jacob Markstrom deal. Believe me, at $6 million per year, no team is trading for Jacob Markstrom. That the contract itself is a no move clause. So yeah, we move on, but I'll have to see. We came in second. We're seeing Noah says, good reaction, Noah. My stomach dropped when I got the notification during a call I was on. I like this. We escaped a very high price, and we just need to hope for no extension. Outside of 9-7, who likes/wants to be in Mini? My brother lived in Minnesota at one point, and then he moved shortly thereafter. So I guess nobody wants to be in Mini. Evidently, Kaprizov wants to be in Minnesota because they gave him a boatload of money. The interesting point about that, though, I know the cap is going up. If Quinn signs in Minnesota, he's going to want a boatload of money. It's going to get real tight there, even with the cap going up, when you got a player that's making $17 million a year. And how are you going to fill it out beyond that? You're going to have me as like one of the right wings. Moving on. Anthony said, Hughes is still on pace to be a free agent in 2 years. Quinn doesn't patch. Sorry, just burped a little bit. Quinn is still on pace to be a free agent in 2 years. Quinn doesn't patch the massive issues the team is facing and injury crisis. Sorry. I think that's a rational take, Anthony. I think that's a rational take. Before this recent crop of injuries broke out, and I can't lump Timo Meier in that because obviously he's dealing with personal stuff, and we hope the best for the Meier family. But I'm going to lump him in with players that are out right now because it's just a fact of the matter. Like, he's not in the lineup. Him, Arseny Gritsuk being out now, this is going to get ugly over the next couple of games, guys. This is going to get freaking ugly over the next couple of games. I don't think Quinn solves that. Watching last night's game was when things kind of turned for me, where it's like, is Quinn a luxury item for a team that can compete like a Minnesota? Right now, it just seems like, yeah, like sure, the Devils have like they have their injuries and they're dealing with it right now, but how, with all these new injuries that are popping up and all these new absences that are popping up, could the Devils even survive that? Like, even with Quinn Hughes in the lineup? I mean, look, Quinn Hughes right now was in the lineup for Vancouver, and Vancouver was still bad. I know there's other factors at play there. They're probably a very distracted team, definitely a very distracted team dealing with this media circus around there. But yeah, very, very interesting. He didn't patch it right away, but I think with this team a little bit more shored up, I think he could have patched things, and I think he could have been a guy that takes him over the top. Maybe he takes him over the top in a couple years. But until then, until that point, Fitzgerald better be working the phones and making this the most complete roster he can in order to make that just the move that puts you over the extra top. Puts you over the extra top there if you're Tom Fitzgerald. So we'll see. And you sign Quinn Hughes in a couple years. Jay Snow, also, they might only have 2 playoff runs. I don't know who you're referencing. I'm assuming you're referencing. Are you referencing the Devils? I don't know. Let's move on. Andrew says, so horrible, frustrating, pisses off the Devils fan base even more. And if we and the team aren't dealing with enough right now. Yeah, I mean, look, the team is dealing with a lot right now. And it's very intriguing to me to see the split reaction to this trade. It's very intriguing. Right now, the poll is 58% say yes, 42. The question is, are you bummed about not getting Quinn Hughes? 58% says yes. Do you want, I mean, I guess the obvious is you want him in free agency in a couple of years. He's that transcendent of a player. Devils are going to have to work things out cap wise, to make that fit. But a lot of these contracts are going to be out there in 2 years. And, Minnesota falls off a cliff, which it doesn't seem like they will. Can you end up poaching him again? Can you end up poaching him a la Rantanen? Or if he gives indications that he's not going to re-sign, can you do that like Dallas did? Rantanen was traded 2 times last year, so we'll see if that ends up happening. I doubt it, though. I feel like Minnesota's a good enough team where you can kind of just roll with that. Guys, this is so crazy. Can you guys believe Quinn Hughes is a Minnesota Wild? I'm speechless right now. Again, I'm probably rambling. This is probably not going to be a very good watch when it's not live, but I don't care. This is just live reaction to it. I love it. Southside Johnny said, "You see, look at this. This is so funny." Andrew's pissed off. Southside Johnny, this is good news. No chance Quinn signs in Minnesota and live in 0-degree weather for the rest of his career. He'll be a Devil in 2 years. I would have been worried if he was traded to LA or Florida or Vegas. I know Vegas was sniffing around as well. It's a good point. Look, success, winning cures everything. Can Minnesota go on a deep enough run to where they can convince Quinn Hughes, all right, this is the team you should be spending your prime years with. This is the team you should be growing into. You should be growing into your own with and becoming that. People always say you're the second best defenseman on the planet. This is the team where you come into and you become the best team on the best defenseman on the planet. I saw a tweet earlier that talked about this is from Brennan Clack. Let's talk about this Minnesota power play. Quinn Hughes, Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson-Ek, Matt Zuccarello. If that power play, and Brennan Clack says this, again, this is his words, not mine. If that power play isn't top 5, it's being coached wrong. I couldn't disagree more. Or sorry, I couldn't agree more there. It's that team better be good. That team better, and they're good right now. I mean, look, but they did lose a lot of depth. It's just, I mean, you guys saw John Hines more than I did, obviously. How do you think John Hines is going to be doing with this? I'm very curious to see that connection there with John, because again, I not uber familiar with John Hines and his system there in New Jersey. How does he do with it? How would he do with a defenseman like that? Is Quinn going to be limited in Minnesota? I don't know. I mean, it should be fine. I would imagine. Like I feel like I could coach Quinn Hughes and that power play in Minnesota. Moving on. Chris says they need to fix more than just grab Quinn. Bottom 6 is absolute garbage. Agreed there, Chris. Look, I keep saying, someone asked me last night, what's your ideal trade target for this team? My ideal trade target right now, and it's an underrated one, the fourth line has been a freaking disaster this year. Don't matter who you spin out there. Go pick someone up on waivers, for Christ's sake. Do that, Retool it at some point. Throw a chance in the mix. I don't even know what he's doing in Utica, but throw him in the mix. Why not? It can't be worse than what you're dealing with right now. The bottom 6 definitely needs a major overhaul. The third line looked great the other day. It looked excellent the other day. Obviously, Gritsuk now injured. But once everybody comes back healthy, I think that third line could be great. And I think, Connor Brown addition has been proven to be so great so far. But yeah, the bottom 6 definitely needs some tinkering as well, because it feels like whenever you get depth scoring from this team, it always just feels so rare, right? It feels like, oh yeah, they finally get depth scoring. They got a Paul Cotter goal. It's like but it's so fleeting, because it's like, all right, that happened right now, but it's not going to last. We're going to go for about an hour here, guys. We're going to go like 7 more minutes here, and then we're going to wrap up. So get your questions in. Maybe I'll jump to the bottom of the chat section here, just so we get some of the new guys in here. We will start right here. We'll start here with Average Snake Enjoyer, who says, I may have jinxed us. I collect jerseys and wore my Minnesota one to class today. So, all right, guys. So if you're pissed off about the Quinn thing, blame this guy right here. October 22nd. Okay, yeah, you're talking about the first Wild game. Matt13R1. If you look back at the Fitz tenure, where did it go wrong? Right now, I mean, drafting is a big one. The Markstrom deal is going to be a freaking, what's the word I should use here? it's going to be a dark spot on the organization for a couple of years now. For 3 years now, because it hasn't even kicked in yet. So that's going to be really bad. Chris says, what do you think it would take to get Alex Tuck? How's he doing this year? Because I know that was one that people mentioned early on. I don't think it would take that much. Like, I think he would be a great fit. I think he would be somebody that you could kind of plug in, top six is obviously as well. Maybe you can, he gets you some muscle as well. I was hoping that it would kind of work out for him in Buffalo, just because I know that he was really thrilled whenever Lindy became the coach there. So obviously things haven't worked out. Maybe if there's a fire sale, then Buffalo will be able to will be more willing to give him up for cheaper. We'll have to see. But I mean, he's got 20. He's a good player. I feel like he's got 26 points, 30 goals or 30 games in 30 games played, 11 goals, 15 assists on a bad Sabres team. I think it would probably take a little bit. Seamus Casey for Alex Tuck straight up, just to give you an answer. Why not? I'll just give you an answer. Who says no? Stanley. Oh, let me see. Let's see. Matt, monthly run. How can fans view this as a positive thing? I think the fans are viewing it as a positive thing just because that, you don't give up that. But again, the haul is relative. Like Minnesota gave up a good haul because they had Minnesota gave up a haul of a haul because they had a haul of a haul to give up. I don't think the Devils had what Vancouver considered to be a haul of a haul to give up, unless you're throwing like something ridiculous in there, like a Jesper Bratt or someone like that. Sue Nathan says, there's a good package for less than 2 seasons of Quinn Hughes. That's Minnie's. Yeah, exactly. Dude, this is a great way to frame it. Minnesota gave up their 2020, 2022, 24, and 26 first rounder. That's what I said that off the top. Zeev was their 12th overall pick. Marco Rossi, their 9th overall pick, and he's coming into his own. Liam Ogren, 19th overall pick, and a first in 2026. That's a freaking haul, guys. That's a haul and a half, I'll tell you what. Feely Films, always great to trade 2 firsts for 35-year-olds so we can lose in the first round. Oh man, yeah. That's the predicament with the Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos moves. What do you give up for him? What do you give up? I would keep that to. I wouldn't give up too much, because even if that, like let's say they give up like a first for Ryan O'Reilly. I don't think Ryan O'Reilly is moving you, because look, the Devils still have a lot of games without Jack Hughes here. I don't think Ryan O'Reilly is moving you, and I like the player. Still don't think he's moving you from here to here while your guys are injured. When Jack comes back, great. And when you get maybe some other guys in the trade mix, perfect. Great player, custom for a deep cup run. A Conn Smythe winner. But I don't know, man. I don't know if you give it up that many assets for him. But at the same time, the Devils do need to push their chips in. So I should say that as well. Matt13R1, will fans ever be happy with what Fitz does? I don't think so, Matt. I really don't. Again, if the Devils go on a nice little streak here, I think that would be fine. I think that things will be good, but that's not in the cards right now, especially not right now. I am not expecting a good weekend of games for the Devils. Look, I was expecting a madhouse on Sunday. I'm so pissed. Do you think it was expedited a little bit by the game? Probably not. Probably just the offer in general expedited the process, of course. But there had to be a thought in the back of Rutherford's mind where he's like, I don't want this to become a circus on Sunday when they face the Canucks, when the Devils face the Canucks. I will say, though, I am so pissed that I wasn't a part of that media circus. I had so many plans. Here's my planned story for next week, guys. You're going to love this. I was going to follow Quinn Hughes to every single game that he played when he was on here in the East Coast. So I was going to go to the Garden, go to the UBS Arena whenever they go on their little tri-state area road trip here. So I was going to go to every one of those games, and I was going to do a story that was basically like, I watched all 3 of Quinn Hughes' games while he was here. Here's what I learned. I was going to talk to the Vancouver guys. I was going to pulse around, see what I could figure out, but obviously it didn't end up happening. I'm really glad I got my one story in with Boudreau, but we'll see. Sue Nathan makes the best point of all. Rossi is a true center. NJ likely wasn't offering that. If they don't have anyone to offer, unless you're giving up Nico in a trade, right? Vancouver's not going to, you can't just like hypnotize Vancouver into thinking that Dawson Mercer's a good center. He's not. He's not. And he'll admit that. He much prefers playing on the wing. Everybody admits that. So, yeah, I think that was definitely the push, the thing that pushed it over the top. But I think the package in general was just really good as well. Minnesota's fans telling me they're not even sure they can afford to resign. That's what I said too. You got 17 million locked up into one guy. You got other promising young players on that roster. I don't know how much they're going to be able to. It's going to be interesting cap maneuvering there. Let's hope. Hopefully, for Minnesota's case, the cap continues to rise, but we'll see because I think the Devils will have something to say about Quinn Hughes going to Minnesota and signing there long term. Final prediction, guys, for you. I know this is a weird trade. I know this came out of nowhere. I know you didn't get Quinn Hughes, but I'm here to talk you off the ledge. You still have assets to go spread across the league to build up your depth, which sure, there are a lot of holes in this Devils lineup. That's for sure. That's the one thing we keep talking about on this stream, which you guys should subscribe to and listen to after every game. The Devils now can spread these assets across the league, and they can build up this lineup. Fitzgerald's got to get uncomfortable. He doesn't like building a lineup in the season, but you're going to have to do the uncomfortable. Because if not, things are about to start getting uncomfortable for you, Tom Fitzgerald. Think the pressure's on. The hot seat is rising. Your seat is getting warmer. Make the move. Make the move. Don't overpay. Spread it out across the league, but make the move. Keep making these calls. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into us here on Speaking of the Devils. I know that this was wild. I know we weren't expecting this, but please be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to share your link with our friends and with your friends. And be sure to tune in after tomorrow's game, 12:30 versus the Anaheim Ducks. I'm Ryan Novozinski. Have a great day.